This Canon 600D or T3i is about to turn 10 years old. When it first came out in 2011, it really began the revolution of cameras in this form factor, a DSLR, that could shoot full HD video. It wasn't a cinema camera and it wasn't even an old handycam. Now, around 2 months ago, I showed you guys how to repurpose one of these very cameras to be used as a webcam for Skype or OBS or a Zoom call, and I was really surprised by the amount of people who found that video helpful. So today, rather than use it as a webcam, I'm going to talk about why, even in 2021, it's still a really great DSLR to make YouTube videos with. So I really love experimenting and challenging myself. You know, the very first video that I made on this channel was both recorded and edited on an iPad Pro. And along those same lines, up until July 2020, every video on this channel was either recorded on the Canon 600D or my iPhone XS Max. Now, the point of doing that was to prove to everyone else, but mostly myself, they can actually start making video content using older camera gear. My YouTube channel got to over 80,000 views before I upgraded to a used Sony A7sii, and I'm actually going to do a video about that in the future, so do subscribe to the channel and hit the bell if you want to stay tuned for that video. I really wanted to have evidence, and now I can use this YouTube channel as that. You don't have to have the latest and greatest camera equipment to make videos. You know, I think it's really important that the videos you make have value and they provide entertainment to that audience that you're going for, which sounds so obvious, but a lot of people still think to make great videos they have to spend their entire budget on the best camera they can possibly get, which for YouTube, which is so risky, is completely the wrong strategy. You know, you want to start making videos and seeing if your video ideas work and if the format finds an audience for them. It's only then when you start to kind of invest in better quality equipment and build up your gear portfolio. But that's enough philosophy. Let's get practical about using a Canon 600D in 2021. The main reason why I think that this camera is still a great YouTube camera in 2021 is because with the right conditions, it can actually do pretty good 4K videos. Now, to be clear, I don't mean 4K Blu-rays or 4K filmmaking. I'm talking about 4K web video. And that's because YouTube in 1080p, its compression is far below what this camera outputs. This camera outputs at about 30 to 40 megabytes and YouTube only really outputs at around 8 megabytes. So if you cheated in an export to be a 4K video, you actually get some pretty good looking results. Now, to be clear, I don't think it's as good as a proper 4K camera. Otherwise, I wouldn't have upgraded to an A7sii, right? But again, when you're starting out, I actually think it can deliver a really good looking 4K video. Now, to get 4K from this camera, it's not as simple as exporting it as 4K and calling it a day. To get the best image quality as possible so it's convincing as 4K, you have to have the right conditions for it. And for this camera, it's all about light. Let there be light. With this camera, you will need a really great lighting setup, but make no mistake, even if you had a much more expensive camera like the A7sii that I'm recording on now, you would still need that very same good lighting setup. So it's totally necessary. Now, I bought a set of newer LED light panels over a year ago, and they worked amazingly with this camera and even my iPhone XS Max. And they do a really good job of lighting yourself and your surroundings. Now, the reason why that's important is that it allows us to lower the ISO on this camera. For these older cameras, even an ISO of 1600 can look really noisy. So the trick is to bring it down to its native ISO of 800 or even ideally 400. And the way to do that is to have a really well lit scene, again, using lights. A really great example of that is my HP Omen build, where everything was so nice and well lit that even the black hoodie and the black clothes that I was wearing did not look noisy at all. That video, you wouldn't think it was recorded on a 10-year-old camera, and it looks great in 4K. Now, it isn't as sharp as, say, for the video from this camera, but it's good enough for that video and it qualifies for YouTube in 4K, and it's high quality enough that an audience would be very happy with it, particularly when you're just starting out making internet video. However, the one caveat with this camera is even if everything is well lit, I did notice there was quite a bit of noise if something is naturally dark. For example, these walls are now dark navy. And I did notice in my Logitech video, even though it was well lit, there was still some noise on the walls. A big question starting out is about lenses. Should I get a kit lens? Should I get the 50mm 1.8 that everybody loves to talk about? Or what other lens should I get for something like a 600D or a T3i? I honestly believe if you're starting out, the kit lens, which is what I have connected to this camera right now, is the way to go. But I think a 50mm, especially on an APS-C sensor like this, it's a really cropped image. You'd have to have a huge room to film in. I wouldn't recommend the 50mm. I mean, even this is kind of cropped in and I had to like move myself back more compared to my Sony A7S2, which you also saw me record with in this video. So I think the kit lens is perfect. 18 to 55, it gives you a bit of zoom. If you want to do some other shots, it's versatile. It's, you know, it's one lens that can do it all. And again, if your video ideas work out and you upgrade your camera equipment down the line, it's not too much of a loss. Now, bizarrely, one of the best features of this camera is just its flip out screen, which sounds trivial, but my upgrade camera actually doesn't have a flip out screen. So I'm actually using my iPad right now so I can see and frame myself, whereas with this, it's just really easy to flip the screen out so you can see yourself, frame yourself if you're doing a talking head video like this or a vlog. And it just flips out sideways. You know, some cameras, they flip up and block the hot shoe, which is this on top of the camera, so that you can't use a microphone or anything. So just to have a screen that can flip out sideways is still bizarrely a feature even today. It also has a mic input, and we all know that sound quality is just as important as video quality when it comes to making videos. Now I feel like when everybody bought this camera, the real YouTuber starter kit back then was to put a Rode Video Mic Pro on top of it, which I still have, which I use for bass audio. But I actually have moved on to lavalier microphones, which I much prefer. I love the consistency of them. It doesn't matter what level I'm talking at, it picks it up and there's not really much noise or echo around me. And what's great about this lavalier microphone that I'm wearing is that it's only about €10, and it actually works really great with this camera. You can just plug it into the camera and start recording. Now the wire is about 6 foot long, so while it'd be perfect for a talking head video or a sit down vlog, your mileage is going to vary because again, it's not the longest wire. However, it's just really convenient and you don't have to sync up the audio externally if you're recording on a recorder. Now on that note, the preamps in this camera aren't as good as the newer cameras or even an external audio recorder. But if you're going to be using a limiter in video editing and, you know, setting the right audio level, you can actually get some really great sounding recordings just plugged straight into the camera. Since this is an older camera, it also means accessories for it are going to be much cheaper. Take an SD card. Because it doesn't record at the highest bit rate, that means you can get a slower speed SD card. And those SD cards that come in higher capacities but a slower speed tend to be pretty cheap actually. So it's a great way to put a large SD card into your camera so you can do like lots of recordings and you don't have to delete your files straight away. Whereas with my new camera, I'm constantly deleting projects after about 4 or 5 videos. I mean, I could record double that on this older camera system. Now, another great accessory for it is a remote control that would allow you to start and stop recording remotely. So you can sit here, press the record button with the remote control, and those are also really cheap. You can get a great one from Amazon Basics. It's no secret that our iPhones and other smartphones on paper can record better video than a DSLR like this. They can record 4K and they would be undeniably sharper when you're looking at things in the background. Like you'd get more detail 100%. Where the benefit of a camera like this though kicks in is in image quality, but in every other aspect. Now I started making videos in 2019 and back then I was really only using the iPhone, but in 2020 I threw this camera into the mix, and that was because I was really unhappy with skin tones and the color signs that I was getting from the iPhone. I just thought skin tones looked really pasty and pludgy, and the skin tones and the color signs that I was getting from this camera was just so much better in every way. Another more practical reason why I wasn't doing any more iPhone videos was because I was getting tired of having to record everything on the iPhone. I mean, it's very handy, and don't get me wrong, that's why I believe in smartphone filmmaking, but it was really annoying that if I was recording and I was, you know, on the other end of the camera, it would stop recording because a phone call or something was coming in. I think the coolest thing about this camera is that still to this day, Canon semi-supports it. Late last year, they released software that allowed you to use this camera as a webcam for your computer, and I did a whole video about that. You can use it for recording Zoom calls, doing streaming on OBS or Skype. I mean, the fact that Canon still enabled those features on a camera as old as this, many years later, is amazing, and it just makes a camera like this much more versatile. So not only can I say that you can record videos in 4K for YouTube, but you can even stream on Twitch with this, you could stream on YouTube with this camera. It's just incredibly versatile. So I know that this wasn't the most in-depth review of using a Canon 600D in 2021, but the main reason for that is a lot of video content on my channel speaks for itself that was recorded on the 600D. It can capture some really great looking video even today. So whether you have one of these lying around in your home, or maybe it's all you can afford, you know, I saw a really great deal on Craigslist or something, go for it. The only real downside to this camera compared to newer DSLRs is that it can't autofocus while recording. You really have to kind of set up your focus before you start filming, but that's not really a big deal, honestly, when I was using it. So if you found this video helpful and you're planning on getting a Canon 600D or a T3i, or you have one lying around that you're going to use for making YouTube videos, do drop a comment below and let me know, and also let me know if you have any questions. But if you found this video helpful and you want to see more videos about me repurposing old technology, do subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to stay tuned for those videos. But stay safe and stay well, and I will see you all in my next one. Bye everyone.